You've seen it happen. Someone posts a fact, a chart, a study, and instead of changing minds, the argument explodes. You show evidence, they double down. You cite a source, they send a meme. So what's going on? Why do facts, the thing we're told should win, so often lose? Today on The Uncommon Sense, we're diving deep into why facts rarely change beliefs and why the truth sometimes makes people believe even harder in the lie. Let's start with one of the most frustrating findings in psychology. When you show people evidence that contradicts their beliefs, it doesn't make them rethink. It often makes them dig in deeper. This is called the backfire effect. According to a 2008 study by Brendan Nyhan and Jason Reifler, when people are confronted with information that contradicts their beliefs, they often reject it so strongly that their false belief becomes even stronger. So when someone says, "Actually, vaccines don't cause autism," the response isn't, "Oh, thanks for clarifying." It's often, "That's just what Big Pharma wants you to think." In Nyhan and Reifler's study, participants who believed the Iraq War uncovered weapons of mass destruction were shown official reports proving none were found. Instead of changing their minds, many became more convinced that the US had found them. That's the backfire effect. Truth triggering defense, not understanding. In short, facts don't always fix falsehoods. Sometimes, they fortify them. Here's the uncomfortable truth. We don't believe what's true, we believe what fits our tribe. According to Kahan's 2015 research, people interpret facts through what he calls cultural cognition, meaning we accept or reject information based on how it aligns with our group identity. You don't say, "I think," you say, "we think." For example, tell a Democrat that stricter gun laws don't always reduce crime. The response, skepticism. Tell a Republican that climate change is accelerating. The response, skepticism. It's not about data, it's about belonging. Kahan states that our political beliefs act like tribal markers. They signal who we trust, who we like, and who's on our team. Supporting this view, neuroscientist Drew Weston notes that political reasoning is more like passion than logic. When MRI scans measured how partisans processed contradictory facts, the emotional centers of the brain lit up, not the rational ones. Their brains didn't search for truth, they searched for comfort. For example, when people who identify strongly with a political group are shown climate change data, their reaction depends less on what the data says and more on who they think is presenting it. If it's their side, they're open to it. If it's the other side, they reject it, regardless of accuracy. This is identity protective cognition, the mind's way of saying, "I'd rather be wrong with my group than right and alone." So the next time you're wondering why your uncle won't believe the climate data, remember, you're not fighting misinformation. You're fighting identity protection. In the 1950s, psychologist Leon Festinger studied a UFO cult who believed aliens would save them from an apocalypse. When the world didn't end, the group didn't disband, they became more devoted. Because if they admitted they were wrong, the entire structure of their identity would collapse. Festinger called this cognitive dissonance, that uncomfortable tension when reality contradicts belief. And to ease that discomfort, the brain doesn't change the belief, it changes the facts. For example, ever argued with someone who says, "The media twisted that quote," or "That study's biased"? That's dissonance reduction in action, mental gymnastics to protect self-image. But modern technology has turned belief defense into an Olympic sport. According to Eli Pariser's 2011 book, The Filter Bubble, social media algorithms feed us information that aligns with what we already believe, reinforcing echo chambers. For example, if you click one video about flat Earth, YouTube will hand you 10 more. In 2018, researchers at MIT, Sarush Vasugi, Deb Roy and Sinan Errol found that false news spreads 6 times faster on Twitter than the truth because lies are emotionally exciting, while facts are, well, kind of boring. Turns out boring truth about inflation policy doesn't get clicks like government plans secret mind control. So not only do we resist new information, the system itself protects our ignorance. Okay, let's not get nihilistic. Facts can change minds, just not in the way we think. According to 2017 research by Brendan Nyhan, Ethan Porter, Jason Reifler, and Thomas Wood, people are more open to factual corrections when people aren't emotionally invested, when the correction comes from someone inside their social group, and when the message appeals to values rather than statistics. For example, in one study, conservatives were more likely to accept climate science when it was framed as protecting God's creation instead of reducing carbon emissions. And liberals became more receptive to gun rights data when it was framed around community safety rather than individual freedom. In short, the messenger matters more than the message. Facts don't persuade. People do. So if you want to change minds, start with trust, not a PowerPoint, because it's not just what you say. It's who says it and how they make you feel. Here's the twist. Facts are weak because stories are stronger. Emotional narratives trigger the release of oxytocin, the empathy chemical, making people more receptive and trusting. Facts appeal to logic. Emotion appeals to meaning. That's why politicians, marketers, and influencers don't just show numbers, they tell stories. A single story about a suffering child moves more people than a chart about a million starving. Psychologist Paul Slovic, in his 2007 article, calls this the psychic numbing effect. Our compassion collapses when faced with statistics. In short, emotion tells us what to care about. Facts only tell us what's true. So if facts rarely change beliefs, what do? How do we build a world that listens before it fights? It starts with what psychologists call intellectual humility, the simple idea that you might be wrong. According to 2017 research by Elizabeth Crumrey-Mancuso, people who score higher in intellectual humility are more open to new evidence, less likely to polarize, better at understanding opposing views, and more capable of respectful disagreement. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Because the smartest people don't know everything. They know what they don't know. And that's the only mindset where facts can actually land. We can also practice steel manning, which involves restating your opponent's argument as strongly as possible before debating it. The process is the antidote to straw manning and one of the few ways to bridge divided thinking because it forces empathy before rebuttal, understanding before attack. Because when someone feels heard, their defenses drop. And once the armor is down, the facts can finally walk in. Because truth isn't discovered by defeating others, it's discovered by understanding them. So maybe the problem isn't that people don't care about facts. Maybe it's that they care too much about what those facts mean for who they are. Facts don't change beliefs. Trust, empathy, and story do. And when we start leading with those, maybe the truth finally has a fighting chance. So the next time you throw facts at someone online and wonder why they won't change, remember, the brain doesn't run on logic. It runs on belonging, emotion, and story. Beliefs are not light switches. They're roots. And pulling too hard only makes them grow deeper. Because in the end, the truth doesn't win by shouting louder. It wins when it makes people feel safe enough to listen. Thanks for watching The Uncommon Sense. If this episode made you rethink how you argue, or why people never seem to listen, share it with someone who still believes the truth always wins on its own. Because in the end, the goal isn't to be right. It's to be real, and to keep thinking beyond the obvious. Subscribe for more unconventional perspectives, and as always, keep questioning, keep thinking, and keep finding your own uncommon sense.